We're 6 days away from the start of the 2021 season. I can't believe it's almost here, and I still can't believe the Cowboys have drawn the shortest of short straws, having to go to Tampa Bay to start the season against a team that has won 8 games in a row, that has everyone coming back, and they don't have a backup quarterback in Dallas. Well, they do. His name's Cooper Rush. So they don't have a backup quarterback in Dallas if Dak Prescott gets injured at any point. On Thursday, Mike McCarthy, coach of the Cowboys, was asked about the sudden availability of a guy who could be a pretty good backup to Dak Prescott and Cam Newton. Let's listen to what McCarthy had to say.
Sit here and talk about any of the players on our roster. I don't think there's really anything that beneficial that comes out of that for us. But Cam's, I had a chance to compete against Cam. A chance to watch some of his tape in New England. So I still think he has a ton of football left. But we're very excited about the group that we have.
Look, how can you say you're very excited about the group that you have? Yeah, you're excited about Dak Prescott, but you learned last year you need a backup. Big Cat, I think a couple of things. First of all, you can't have Cam Newton on your team unless he's the starter because he is too magnetic. He will have people in the locker room that want to play with him. Now, if you've got a very clearly entrenched franchise quarterback, maybe you can get away with it, but I don't think he wants to be a backup. But secondly, I think the Cowboys look at last year and say, we had Andy Dalton and we needed him and we still stunk. What's the point? If we don't have Dak Prescott, we're done. We don't need to worry about a backup quarterback. If we can't use the guy that we want, it's over.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because there are definitely teams where if the starting quarterback is gone, it's over. Don't even worry about it. It's over. You just know that the drop off is that severe. I agree with you though. Cam is not a backup, and I don't say that in a mean way. I say it actually in a nice way that he has the energy of a starter. He's been a starter his entire career in the NFL. There are certain guys who could have careers as backups for a very long time, and I just don't think their personality-wise are built for it. I always said that, Jay Cutler, who I consider a friend, he is a guy who he could have played another 5 years as a backup in the NFL. If Jay Cutler stayed in shape and was still ready to go, you don't think that he would be a better backup in terms of talent than, 90% of the backups currently in the NFL? But he's not a backup type of personality, a backup type of player. So there are just certain guys who aren't that. And I think Cam Newton is that exactly, that description. So if there's a starting job that comes along, if there is someone who gets injured and then they want to call up Cam, maybe. But I don't think that you bring him in as a backup because, like you said, he's a magnanimous. What did you say? Magnanimous? Magnanimous?
Magnetic. I said he's magnetic.
Magnetic. All right. So I went for it. I went for it there.
You haven't had your coffee yet.
Magnanimous personality in the locker room. He also, I know I wanted to discuss this with you because I completely disagree that Cam Newton's vaccination has anything to do with him getting cut with the Patriots. Cam Newton's not good. I don't know why we think he's still good. He was a really good quarterback for a good amount of time in the NFL. He's probably the best college football quarterback I've ever seen in terms of the season he had at Auburn, that national championship season. Obviously, you have the MVP year where you see him put it all together. But as he currently states, go look at Cam Newton's year last year. And I know the players weren't great around him. He wasn't good. If you watch the game with your eyes, you know that he has something wrong with his mechanics. He can't make all the throws anymore. He's not seeing the game in a way that he can maybe get by with not being 100% physically as Cam Newton. He's just not that good anymore. And I don't mean that in the mean way. I mean that in everyone talks about Cam Newton, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Maybe nowhere because he's not a backup. And he might not be a starter anymore talent-wise.
Well, let's go there. But before we do, though, I have to point out, it's been a couple of minutes now, but I think it's the first time I've ever heard anyone make the humble brag name drop of Jay Cutler. Cutler?
I mean, he's a friend of mine. Yeah.
Right, okay,
yes.
we're very impressed by your friendship with Jay Cutler.
I mean, he is.
Cam Newton, friendship is not likely going to happen based upon your comments after that. I look at things as simply as I possibly can because that's pretty much all my brain can process. Monday of last week, Bill Belichick says Cam Newton is the starter and will remain the starter until someone else plays better than him. So whatever anyone else thinks about Cam Newton's skills or abilities, as of 11 days ago, Bill Belichick regarded him the starter, unless he was lying through his teeth, which, look, shocker, football coaches lie sometimes. But what's the upside of lying about Cam Newton being the starter when you're getting into late August and the season is approaching? I think the vaccination status hurt him, not because Bill Belichick is saying, I think everybody should be vaccinated, and I don't want some anti-vaxxer on my team, and we've brought in these experts to try to convince these guys, and he just won't change his mind. I don't want this guy on my team because I don't want this guy around me. I think that Belichick went through the mental gymnastics that the Jacksonville Jaguars are now trying to do to clean up Urban Meyer's mess when he came out and said, yeah, sure, we considered vaccination status in making our roster decisions. It's a matter of availability. When you're the most important player on the team and you can be gone any given day, every given day, 10 days if you test positive because you get tested every day as an unvaccinated player, or 5 days if you have close contact with somebody who's infected, or 5 days if you do something stupid, which is what he did. He did something stupid. He went out of town, and he didn't get tested every day at the facility. He thought you could go to the drugstore and get a COVID test and phone in the results, I guess. And so he's gone. Mac Jones seizes the opportunity, and off we go. And can't have Cam as the backup to Mac Jones. Can't have him diluting Mac Jones' ability to try to lead this team. So if he can't be the starter, can't be on the team, that's it. So it wasn't because he's not vaccinated. That wasn't it. It was he's not reliable. You can't trust him, and we've seen it play out, and Mac Jones took the job. So I think that's how his vaccination status played into his departure.
I'm okay with that. I just thought it was ridiculous that people were using Cam Newton not vaccinated as the reason why he got cut by the Patriots. And I can hold two thoughts in my brain at the same time, Mike. I do think when it comes to borderline guys, like Urban Meyer admitted, you're gonna want your borderline guys. You're gonna want your roster bubble guys to be vaccinated because those guys are seen and not heard, right? Like, you don't want issues from them. Cam Newton, though, if Cam Newton were good, if Cam Newton was 2000, whatever it was, 15, 16, MVP Cam Newton, he could have like a new strain of coronavirus, and Bill Belichick would keep him on the team. Bill Belichick only cares about winning football games. I saw someone tweeting me, they're like, Bill Belichick would sign the coronavirus if it meant that they could win more football games. So, like, the guy only cares about the product on the field. He cares about who can help the team win. So just like now all of a sudden being like, well, he clearly he cut him because he's not vaccinated. I don't buy it. I just think Cam Newton's not that good anymore. And I think Bill Belichick knew it. I think Bill Belichick knows that Cam Newton doesn't give him the best chance as a backup because of everything you said, where the guys in the locker room love Cam Newton. He is a leader. He is a guy that everyone is drawn to. And you can't have a rookie quarterback start the season with a backup who's won an MVP, who's gone to a Super Bowl, who everyone loves, and then have, you start 1-3, and everyone's like, well, why aren't we playing this guy? I think the inner politics of an NFL locker room and playing the right guy, and I know we're going to get to this because we're going to talk about what's going on with my Bears, that matters. Players know. They know who the best player is. And Mac Jones, I think, is better than Cam Newton right now. But if he struggles, then it quickly becomes a different story, and everyone says, why is Cam Newton not playing?
The biggest difference between Cam Newton, who's not vaccinated, and Kirk Cousins, who's not vaccinated, is that there's no one else in Minnesota that Mike Zimmer could have turned to and said, this guy's as good or close to it or maybe better than Kirk Cousins, and I don't have to go to bed every night before a game worrying that in the morning he's going to test positive. I'm going to have to rip up my game plan on the fly with 2 hours notice and pivot to somebody else. If there's somebody like that in Minnesota, Cousins is gone. And I think that's the reality. Right, right. You got the potential cap implications and all of that.
Yeah,
they have guaranteed salaries for it's $35 million next year fully guaranteed for Kirk Cousins. That makes it harder to cut him. But you don't even get there. You don't even get there if you don't have an alternative now. New England had an alternative now.
The other thing with Cam Newton, I saw some people saying, well, why would you bring him back if he was so bad last year? The Patriots brought him back on nothing. You know what I mean? Like, what would they end up losing there? $2.5 million?
$3.5 million. $3.5 million total.
That is worth it to see if Cam Newton, maybe it was an injury, maybe he needed to learn the offense, you get him a full like OTAs and training camps. That in terms of like the quarterback position, trying to figure out who you have, and this is obviously they signed him to this deal before the draft, so you don't know how the draft is going to play out. All of those things are worth it to bring a guy like that back to see if maybe it can work out, and knowing that if it doesn't, like it didn't, it is basically nothing to cut him. Because if Kirk Cousins, I think, was owed $3.5 million, I think the Vikings would probably cut him. I really do, because I think they're probably sick of him. I think they're probably sick of the ceiling that the team has, knowing here's the limitations, and we're never going to get past this point. I actually think the Vikings, by the end of the year, I think Kellerman will be the starter for the Vikings. You like that? That's my prediction.
Next year, not this year. Mon's not ready, and Mon's not vaccinated either, so you don't solve the problem in Minnesota by swapping out Cousins for Mon. The problem of worrying constantly about your quarterback suddenly being unavailable and screwing up the game plan and taking a potential victory and making it a loss. The other thing I think the Patriots were doing with Cam Newton in hindsight, it throws dirt on the possibility of taking a quarterback with that 15th pick. You're less susceptible to being leapfrogged by somebody else who wanted Mac Jones, because even though there was a lot of speculation the Patriots would do it, it's kind of like nobody really believed it. Like, boy, hey, I could see Mac Jones going to the Patriots at 15, but the Patriots don't use first-round picks on quarterbacks. Belichick has never done it. That's not how they do things. So when you have Cam Newton there, and they really did like, and now we have to say did, not do, they did like Cam Newton, and there were reasons to think he could be better with a second year in the system with better weapons around him. But they got Mac Jones, and Mac Jones came in, and when he was given the opportunity, he seized it. And now he's clearly the best option to run that team. And just in case he slips, there won't be a clamoring for Cam Newton, because it's Mac Jones and then Brian Hoyer as the next option, and nobody in that locker room is going to say, we want Brian Hoyer. You touched on this briefly. PointsBet has put out the odds for the next team that Cam Newton will take a snap for. We've already had Washington, through Ron Rivera, come out and say no thanks, and we've had Mike McCarthy say no thanks, and they're still both the favorite. So I guess I would bet against whatever the negative is, whatever the flip side odds are for Dallas and Washington. I would hammer that bet, because it's not going to be Dallas, it's not going to be Washington unless there's an injury. And I think that's the key. When you look at all those favorites, except for Houston, none of those other ones are going to happen unless there's an injury to the starter. Maybe in Miami if Tua just ends up being horrible. If that's the case, they'll trade for Deshaun Watson. But for the top candidates on that list, it all, I think, has as a starting point the starter getting injured before you ever get to the point where you call Cam. You're not going to bring in Cam to be the backup.
You're not going to bring him in to be the backup. And also, I don't think you're going to bring him in if you don't have a chance maybe at getting to, and this is obviously going against what I just said, because I do not think he's good anymore, but maybe if you're trying to salvage a playoff berth and you're like, we need someone who can maybe make some plays here. I don't know, like if Houston, if Deshaun Watson, whatever happens there, I don't even know if they'd bring in Cam Newton to run out the stretch there, because what would be the point? Like, why wouldn't you want to just see someone younger, see if you can have someone who's a backup try it out and see if, you have something there. So I think it would be like a late season, can we win one or two games to get into the playoffs as a stopgap? And even then, I don't know. Mike, I don't know if he'll get signed this year. I think he'll probably get a chance next year, but it is tough because he really is. And this is me being praising Cam Newton here, but like he really is that type of personality where everyone's drawn to him. I think he's a great teammate. I think everyone loves him. And it's hard to bring a guy like that in there when you're trying to have everyone rally around whatever quarterback you have going right now. Like Tua, even Tua. You bring in Cam Newton, that's an issue because Tua, I don't care how many times Brian Flores can get in front of us and tell us Tua's his quarterback. That can't be rock solid. It just can't. Like he hasn't shown it yet. So he might show it week one. He might show it, in September. But as it currently states, that locker room in Miami, there's no way they're 100% we love Tua.
Yeah, and Sims and I talked about this yesterday. The only way Tua is going to quiet the Deshaun Watson noise in Miami, which is real, is to go out and play well, be motivated by it the way Tom Brady would, be upset about it, and go out there and prove to them that they don't need to be thinking about Deshaun Watson, that they have a new Deshaun Watson in Tua Tagovailoa. With Cam, too, the other thing, and I've said this a couple of times this week, but you and I haven't had a chance to talk about it, it's a lot like what happened in the latter stages of Mike Vick's career. It was hard for him to find a backup job because you had a locker room full of guys who grew up idolizing him. And we're getting to that point with Cam. Think about it. Rewind 10 years to when Cam was the first overall pick coming out of Auburn. You got guys in the locker room now who were 12, 13 years old with Cam Newton posters, and they loved Cam Newton. So you have to have an entrenched starting quarterback who won't be threatened in any way, directly or indirectly, by Cam. And if you're going to do that, then just wait until somebody gets injured. There's no reason to pick a team where you say, well, let's say I'm going to find the quarterback most likely to have a season-ending injury. I'll go to Pittsburgh and be the backup to Ben Roethlisberger. And frankly, that's one of the places that makes sense because it worked for Vic, because nobody in the locker room is going to say, we want Cam. If Ben gets hurt, you got Cam, and he's a better alternative than Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, no, I agree. So maybe the Ravens, maybe that's the answer because Lamar Jackson is their starter and everyone loves him. So, yeah, you're absolutely right, though. You need to have that firm foundation that it's bringing him in for a stopgap, not bringing him in to potentially take the starting job next year, because that's probably what Cam wants to do. He's a competitive guy. So I just think it's a very tricky situation. I don't see a lot of spots where he can land.
I think that the best proof of your point, and I don't completely agree with your point. I think if you put Cam Newton in an offense that more naturally fits his skill set, not try to jam square peg in a round hole, although the Patriots did adjust their offense to suit his skills. The problem is when he uses his skills, he gets injured because he's so big and he can move and he can run, but we've seen time and again he gets hit, he gets hurt, and he hasn't made that transition to pocket passer later in his career like a Steve McNair or a Steve Young did. I think that's part of the problem. But I think if the Saints never show interest in Cam Newton to be the game day backup that Teddy Bridgewater was to Drew Brees, that Jameis Winston was to Drew Brees, while Taysom Hill does his thing and now Winston is the starter. I mean, Peyton dealt with this guy for nearly a decade. If Peyton isn't interested, that's kind of the sign that, okay, maybe it's not there anymore. Maybe the best days are well behind Cam Newton. And because it would make sense if the Saints would sign Cam Newton to be the game day backup to Jameis Winston, I think we'd all say that makes sense. And if anybody can make it work, it's Peyton.
If Ron Rivera were to sign him, because I actually think that Fitzpatrick is probably better right now in his point of his career than Cam Newton. But if Ron Rivera, he knows how special Cam Newton can be, and he's passing, that tells you everything.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.